This is just a work session, so we'll jump right in. First item on the agenda is public comment on agenda-related items. If there's anyone that is here wishing to speak on any of the items on the agenda, you may come forward, state your name and address.
Rosemary Bates, 132 West Main Street. I am here representing the Gallatin Economic Development Agency and wanted to talk about items 2, 6, and 11. In regard to item number 6, I'm just hoping that you will appreciate what they're trying to do. It is different, but I think it's exactly what they need to do to finish that property for the time being. So please look kindly on it.
Okay.
As for item number 2, our agency supports this annexation because the intent of the property owner is to come back and ask for it to be rezoned industrial. And apparently signs have gone up in the area, so there may be some concern, particularly from the residents of Roundtree, but we've already had discussions, and perhaps the property owner's representative will address this too, about making sure we protect those residents, and I'm happy to talk about some of those details when you're on that item, if you'd like. And then lastly is the moratorium on rezoning. Brian Rose has been great to work with. He knows I have some anxiety about a particular property, and I am not necessarily opposed to the moratorium on rezoning. I'm a little concerned about the time frame and when it will kick in. The last thing we want to do is to delay any sort of industrial or commercial development. I'm not as interested as y'all are maybe in the residential aspects of the development, but I want to make sure that we are not going to hamper any commercial development that may seek rezoning, and a 9-month wait could be financially challenging for them and could make a difference in if they choose to locate here, and it may be a commercial entity that we would like to have here. I don't know that I have an answer except to maybe shorten that 9 months to 6 months perhaps, but you know, we will respect whatever decision you make, but as you're thinking about that tonight and talking about it, just please remember a lot of people are glad you're going to do a moratorium, but they're mostly opposed to high-density residential. They're not necessarily opposed to commercial and industrial moving ahead. So thank you very, very, very much.
Rosemary. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment on agenda-related items. And we'll move on to item number 2, Gregory annexation and plan of service.
Yes, the applicant is requesting annexation of a property along Roundtree Drive. This is north of the Gallatin Industrial Park. It is 327 acres approximately, and it does go on either side of Roundtree. On the screen, you can see everything in purple is within the city limits. And so we are contiguous along the most southern piece of this property. Right here, this is contiguous to city limits. And then actually this property, Brights Lane, has ownership of actually Brights Lane is either side of the property, either side of the road is the property owners. So this property owner owns half of Brights Lane, technically, it's an easement. So the northern portion of this property, north of Roundtree, is contiguous by way of a portion of Brights Lane. Now, through communication with the applicant and our engineering department, the desire is that very little of Brights Lane is actually annexed with this annexation. And there are talks ongoing about the potential of annexing Roundtree at a later date, working with the county to make that happen. But due to the ownership of Brights Lane, this whole property is one parcel and is contiguous. This applicant has gone through the annexation petition process, so this went to City Council with an annexation study for their consideration, and they did approve that petition so that they could actually apply. And so this item comes to you before it goes back to City Council for consideration of the plan of service and annexation. As Rosemary said, this is intended for industrial development. There is no zoning attached to it, and there is no site plan attached to it at this time, but that is their intent.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there a member from the applicant present?
Andy Leith, Greenlee Design. Happy to answer your questions, but will confirm that it is our intent to pursue industrial zoning. Obviously, I can't, in full disclosure, promise a lot to you guys at this phase because things happen. But it is our intent to pursue industrial zoning.
Okay. I guess, my first question is, will the main access for this property be off Roundtree, or would it be through the remainder of the industrial complex?
We've had some discussions with the city, and we know what we would rather do, which is not use Roundtree. But there are obviously a lot of moving pieces that we will have to get into once we get past annexation and get into the rezoning, and even further into the site plan.
Okay. Is it, I think we talked about this earlier, but the Roundtree will remain a county road?
For right now.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that's the city's, or staff's position anyway, that they would like Roundtree to be part of the annexation.
Part of the annexation?
Depending on what you want first, the chicken or the egg. So we either get the property in, then get the road, or do it simultaneously and work with the county. We do know the county has fee simple ownership of Roundtree.
Okay.
It's not like one of these old pieces of road where it was dedicated over back in the 80s, I believe.
Cool. And did I hear you correctly that, I guess, they went to the council with a petition first?
Yeah, so they have to go first in order to get permission to apply.
Okay,
So they have done that step.
okay. Yes, sir.
So this may sound like splitting hairs, but I think it's pertinent in this discussion. I've never asked the question, is the urban growth boundary the center of the road or the?
From what I can tell on the maps, it's the east side of the road of Brights Lane. So Brights Lane would be within the urban growth boundary if you go off of our maps.
Oh, so it is that, I didn't know if this was a Sharpie marker or a pen.
Yeah, so actually a portion of this property is outside of our urban growth boundary. We had to request that they update the survey to remove it because we can't annex that.
Okay. So,
Is that the hatched area on the map?
Yes, we're
Okay.
not annexing that.
but to make sure I'm asking the right question, that lane, what's the name of it?
Brights Lane?
No,
Roundtree?
Roundtree Lane is within the urban growth boundary?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? I don't have any other questions. I mean, they've already gone and received their petition with council. I think that this is obviously within the growth boundary, and if we're looking at character and everything to the south of it is industrial, I think it fits.
The only other piece of information regarding the character area is that it's still, that would have to be amended on the
Amended?
comprehensive plan.
It's
It's shown as rural right now, so.
Okay.
That would have to be part of their application for rezone, or prior.
is it a separate agenda item, or does that go through with the annexation?
It can run either concurrent. They could apply for it now if they wanted to. They don't have to wait until the rezoning, but they can also run it concurrent with the rezoning.
But that, I guess, just to better understand that process is obviously amending that comp plan is going back through PC and council along with, okay. So they could either do it with the annexation or the rezone.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'll consult with them to see if they want me to turn it in at the next cycle.
Okay.
The intention to hook it into Gateway Drive and come across Roundtree Road?
I mean, just sitting here from the bird's eye view and as engineers and planners, I mean, that would be ideal. We're still very, very premature in getting to that point, but I feel like that is a conversation that needs to be had as we progress toward somebody buying this property or before it's sold. That would be ideal.
The reason I ask that, you've already got the red light
Yes.
on 25, and then
We have either Beretta or Facebook or Meta to come across if we do that, but, I mean, from a planning standpoint, that makes the most sense. So this property still has some issues, even after annexation and zoning, we still have some things to work out to move forward to getting something on the property.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I did ask about the wrong road. I was actually asking about Bright's Lane. Is it within the urban growth boundary or?
In this area, I believe it is, yes.
But we only own half of Bright's Lane. That's what the city didn't want to annex, just half of Bright's Lane.
Half as in to the center line or half as in like a distance wise?
Half is in the deed, pretty well calls to the center line of
Center
Bright's.
line.
It's not unusual for a property this old.
Okay.
Yeah, we've actually asked them to move the boundary line outside of Bright's Lane to not include. But the only portion is going to be essentially the end of Roundtree where Roundtree ties into Bright's Lane.
So when you say move the boundary outside of Bright's Lane, is that them
The
dedicating
annexation.
right of way?
It's the annexation boundary. We won't be moving the legal boundary just yet, but the annexation boundary, what
Okay.
the question will be. We'll set the line, I think this is what we discussed. We're going to set the line where it would be 25 foot off center.
For
I think
right
it
of
was
way?
done with Meta.
So then portions of the property would remain in the county as a separate tract?
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense. I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Okay, see you back in a few weeks. Thanks, Andy. Okay, we will move to item number 3, Savannah Marketplace Starbucks monument sign. Kimberly?
Good evening, everyone. Kimberly, staff planner. Yes, the owner applicant is requesting approval for a revised final master development for alternative sign. It's located at 2127 Nashville Pike. It's located on 1.1 acres, zone PGC. Purpose of the alternative sign is because of the low grade. The front yard of the property is has a significant slope from Nashville Pike down to the parking lot, and then plus there's a wide White House easement, utility easement. The height of the sign is total of 14 feet. 6 of that is below grade. So.
Thank you. Is there a member of the applicant present? Jonathan, come forward. State your name and address.
Jonathan Allison, Yesco Signs and Lighting.
Okay, awesome. Do you have anything to add to what Kimberly said?
No, that's pretty much correct. The original site plan showed a sign with the base of it, even with grade, given that the grade, is significantly lower than what we anticipated. They're proposing to make it taller.
Okay. I don't know if they mentioned this to you, but this is just like the parcel to the west. They had to do the same thing, and we approved that one. This is very much in line with what they did there. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if anyone else does.
Seems like we already approved.
Yeah, this seems very straightforward.
If
So,
we could make it taller, could we, do some things to the base? Like right now, they showed it just as a design perspective, but we may inevitably make that brick base a little bit wider to be more aesthetically appealing than the same width as the actual sign.
I don't see that being an issue at all.
Okay.
As long as staff, still keep it in line with the brick that's on, I guess, matching the facade of the building, so. Okay, awesome, thank you. See you back in a couple weeks. Okay, we go to item number 4, Southwater Food and Gas LED monument sign.
As the owner applicant requests approval for a site plan for an alternative sign. It's located at 600 Southwater Main and 0.43 acres. The digital sign the current sign is a non-conforming pole sign, so they're going to replace that. And code requires that you have 250 feet from a residence, so they do not meet those requirements. But it is similar to Gigi's, it's right across the street that was just approved earlier this year. And Southwater is on a predominantly main corridor, so.
Okay, awesome. Is there an applicant, a member from the applicant present for this one? Okay, guess not. I mean, this one seems very much in line with the one we did several months ago. I mean, how close, is this the same distance to a residence as the other one?
No, they're different, but they're still less than the 250 feet.
Okay,
There are 3 properties that are affected.
okay. I mean, in my opinion, and I think we said this the last time, this is a beautification effort more so than anything else. I don't know what that sound is. But this is more so a beautification effort, in my opinion, than anything else. So I don't have any other questions or comments. Anyone else?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the next one. Item number 5 is Avery Trace Amenity Center Final Master Development Plan. And I get just a heads up, I will have to recuse myself from this item. So John, you're gonna have to take this one.
Okay. Item number 5, Avery Trace Amenity Center, Final Master Development Plan. Staff?
Yes, so this is for an amenity center within the Avery Trace development, which is just starting to get started. The whole development already has FMDP approval and a couple plats. This amenity center is proposed for pretty much the center of the overall development. It's going to be right in here. It'll be adjacent within the townhome portion of the development with a pool, small building, and adjacent parking. They have provided a landscaping plan that is compliant with code and architecture, which is generally in keeping with most little amenity centers that we see for developments with the board and batten siding and a brick base. That's all I have.
Do we have a representative for the applicant present?
Corey Nelson, 615 Design Group. Happy to answer any questions.
Floor, anyone? How many parking spaces are provided for the amenity center?
You got me on that. 2, I'm gonna have to count this. But the middle parking space right there is all dedicated to the amenity center. I would say there's roughly about 18 from my rough calculation of there, but
Oh, so that's not just that one area that's next to the center, but across the way, there's a single row, and then down from that 2?
yeah, that little bulb out of the main parking that kind of bulbs out towards the amenity center, that's all within the amenity parking lot.
Highlight it with a little red pen. Yeah.
I have
Okay, so it's all 3 of those areas.
just the single area. The other 2 areas are for the townhomes.
Yeah, that's for the pool. This is for this FMDP, and these are already approved as additional parking for the townhome
Oh,
area.
okay. But it meets the parking requirements for what they have there.
Yes.
And definitely those could overlap and be
Oh, yeah.
used interchangeably, I guess.
If I'm golf cart parking, is that such a hot topic these days?
Well, I mean, if they can find some grass, I guess.
I think I counted 14.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then I guess we'll see you back in a few weeks.
Appreciate it.
Back to you.
Item number 6, Gallatin Industrial Data Center Phase 2. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The owner applicant requests approval of a revised site plan for the Gallatin Industrial Data Center Phase 2 on a portion of 512.54 acres zoned IR Industrial Restrictive District located south of Roundtree and east of Gateway. So this is for Building 4, which was here. There was a field change done middle of 2023 where they had poured a foundation and then they just put sod on top of it, left it alone. And then they're coming back to kind of finish that out. There's a slight layout change, not much really on that, but the architecture is significantly different. So this is a insulated membrane structure for the whole length of that building. Kind of similar maybe to what was originally approved at the country club for Foxland, or for Fairview, for the tennis,
Tennis
the
courts.
original approval for that same,
Yeah.
or similar material to that, I would imagine. But with openings kind of throughout. So definitely an alternative architecture for us, which is up to y'all for approval. But outside of that, staff had mostly minor comments. It basically fits within the same frame as the previously approved building from 2021.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Is there a representative for the applicant present?
Brad Simpson, Barge Design Solutions out of Nashville. Happy to address any questions, comments. We have gotten staff comments. Don't really take any objection to what they've had. We're actively working through addressing the most major comment was with the building codes on Fire Road access around the building. We've shifted the building a little bit from what you saw there just to make sure we've got sufficient access for them around the building. But
Okay.
otherwise, don't have any real questions or comments about staff's comments.
Okay. And then I think Jim mentioned this, but is the, I guess, facade or roof, is it like a membrane structure?
Correct.
Okay.
And I have been exposed to this as they were examining whether this would come here. And while the aesthetic is not like the other buildings necessarily, and probably not like our ideal aesthetic for something that you're going to see as a focal point somewhere, I don't think it's very visible. And the, for lack of a better term, the shelf life of the building is short. I mean, it is not a building that's going to be here 100 years from now. And in a case like this, I actually think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because we all, always worry about what happens when you have these large buildings that at some point in the future when things change, how might they get repurposed? And this one would actually go away after a period of time.
Okay. I mean, it's tucked back in the back corner of the property. I mean, it sits adjacent to the other building that's already been constructed. So I mean, I don't, from, like you're saying, from a visual perspective, you're not gonna be able to see.
It's not going to be the focal point of.
Personally, I think it looks kind of cool. I've got no other comments. If there's anyone else.
No question.
Okay, see you back in a couple weeks. Thank you. Next is item number 7, Bledsoe Springs, Phase 1. Do you want to do the next 2 items with it?
The first one, I'll do separate since it's different.
Okay, cool. So we'll do Phase 1, re-subdivision.
This is a re-subdivision of lots 22 through 32. It's zone PRD, it's on 1.46 acres. Purpose of this is to realign the property lines, just to adjust them. They're minor adjustments, still meeting the 6,000 square foot lot. These are still consistent with the FMDP and the preliminary plat.
Okay. Awesome. Is there a representative for the applicant present?
Dakota Beasley, Greenwood Design. Originally what came through and was approved and recorded, the lot lines were shifted from the construction plans to allow different lots to fit different houses. Since that time, we've been told that's no longer needed, so we're just shifting them back to the approved construction plans. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so same lot count, same everything? Okay. Seems very straightforward. I've got no comments. Okay, see you back in a couple weeks. Okay, so we got item number 8 is Phase 2, Bledsoe Springs Phase 2. Item 9 is Bledsoe Springs Phase 3. Yeah,
Phase 2 is 41 single-family lots. It's on 10 acres. Again, it's consistent with the FMDP and the final preliminary plat. So Phase 3 is 48 single-family lots, again, consistent with the FMDP and the preliminary plat.
awesome. Thanks, Kimberly. All right,
Dakota Beasley, Greenland Design, happy to answer any questions.
yes, sir.
Only question I have, you said it's consistent with the FMDP. I know that when this first came through, there was a lot of discussion from the neighbors about the width of those lots along that eastern, I think that's eastern boundary edge. We're not making them any narrower than agreed upon. It's,
No,
okay. That's the only thing I wanted to ask. That's good.
Any other questions? Steve? Good? Okay. We'll see you back in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 10 is Laurelwood Park Phase 1, final plat.
Good evening, Commissioners. Brad Hickman, Staff Planner. The owner and applicant request approval of a final plat for Laurelwood Park Phase 1 consisting of 61 lots zoned MRO, multiple residential and office district located south of Drivers Lane and east of Lorraine Drive. Staff had mostly minor comments around some small inconsistencies with the preliminary plat, around lot sizes and line lengths. And several of the lines on this plan intersect with measurements and descriptions, making them illegible. So we'd like that cleaned up. Along with some cleaner language around this property here, that it's marked to be conveyed to the adjoining property, either a signature block for the new owner or listed as unbuildable. So it's clearly indicated on this plat. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Is there a representative from the applicant present?
Zach Duddy with Smith Douglas Homes. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Zach? This seems pretty straightforward to me. It looks very consistent with the FMDP, in my opinion. I mean, staff didn't see any other crazy changes or anything. Yeah, this seems very consistent. Well, this, I guess with this connects, well, there will be a connection from Drivers Lane to the back end of the other development, correct?
Yes, sir. It goes, Phase 1 will take it from Drivers Lane all the way to Lorraine Drive.
Okay.
And then Phase 2 will connect to the, I guess, the southeastern part of the property.
Okay, awesome. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm not keeping up with the class here. I remember this project well. The area that's outlined in yellow, that's what we're talking about. What about the area to the southeast of that? That was supposed to be homes. Are you saying, what will become of that area not in the yellow boundary? I thought that was homes.
I'm not seeing the yellow, but Phase 2 connects, there's between the stream buffer there's that phase line between.
Okay.
Yes, sir, that'll be
Yeah, so
Phase
there
2.
is a phase 2 still.
Yes, sir, yeah.
The yellow boundary is just Phase 1.
I misunderstood you to say that the change was that phase 2 is not buildable, and that would be a big
We're just not platting it right now.
Understood. Thanks.
We're working with the surveyor to get all the language and everything cleaned up.
But it will connect, obviously, to phase 1, just like we've seen in previous plans.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we'll see you back in a couple weeks. Thanks,
All
Zach.
right, thanks, guys.
Okay, item number 11, moratorium on rezonings, Gallatin Planning Department.
Okay, this one's mine. So I, of course, briefly mentioned this to you all a couple weeks ago at our last meeting, and we definitely had some discussion about it at that point, although I was also still in progress with talking about it to the city council and wanted to first get their direction on whether or not to move this forward. And of course, in conjunction with this, this plays a big part of the ZOCO project, which we do have our comments back to them. We're working through any questions that they may have right now, and we do expect hopefully to have that final draft of the zoning ordinance back, I would say, end of next month. That's a guesstimate, but at this point in time, we're moving this discussion forward so that we can kind of time it correctly to be able to have this in place, if it is the desire of the city, to be able to hopefully keep us from having so many conflicts with the new ordinance once it's adopted. But essentially, part of the zoning update has been to create a whole new set of zoning districts that will ultimately replace our current set of zoning districts in the city. And this code adoption process will essentially rezone the entirety of the land within the city limits. So that being said, the changes will be minimal, as we have recommended the properties be converted over to a closely resembled district, allowing similar uses and densities so as not to decrease rights under the current zoning allowances to the best of our ability. We have evaluated each zoning district and have made recommendations to our consultants as to what zoning should be applied to each property as we make this transition. For example, if a property is zoned agricultural right now in the city, the transition for that property would likely be CD2A, which is our comparable agricultural district in the new zoning ordinance. Both of those permit lots of 2.5 acres in size, similar uses and things like that. So we're trying to make an even transition on those properties. As we begin to process the adoption of the new code, it's important to consider that new rezoning requests would that are received between now and when we adopt the new code would increasingly become in conflict with and may overlap the proposed new zoning map that's part of the code adoption. So to understand this, it's important to know also that the law provides that an application, once it's received and accepted by the city as a complete application, will be subject to the current zoning regulations in place at the time the application was accepted. So applications received prior to the application of the new code would be subject to review and approval under the old code. This becomes problematic because these applications are asking for a rezoning to one of the old districts. Hang on, not quite. One of the old districts, which would potentially, depending on the application and approval timing, would potentially not even be in effect anymore if the new code gets adopted prior to the approval of that application for rezoning. Those old zoning districts will be discontinued and the new zoning districts will be in effect. It's for this purpose that the Planning Department is recommending a brief moratorium on the rezoning of properties. The adoption of the moratorium would follow the same process as the process to rezone property in the city, i.e. recommendation from Planning Commission and then move through council for adoption. Our legal department has done some research and found that there is case law that indicates that this type of moratorium, when considering adoption of a new zoning code, is an acceptable reason to justify a moratorium. We want the time period to be as specific as possible let's see, we want the time period to be specific as that is more legally acceptable than an open-ended timeframe. We feel that we can justifiably put this timeframe at 9 months, although I will take any type of comments or suggestions that you all have. The reason we arrived at the 9-month period of time is we're trying to match how much time it may take for the adoption of the new code and not have the moratorium end prior to adoption of the new code. I put it on the screen that we're assuming that we may have 3 months time frame at Planning Commission, and we may have 3 months time frame at City Council, and I'm building in an extra 3 months just in case. We may be finished earlier than that, and that's one of the things that we're trying to also work in the flexibility for that by putting in language into the ordinance that the moratorium would terminate if the new code is adopted prior to the end of that 9-month period. So it may only be 5 or 6 months that the moratorium would be in place if that code gets adopted sooner than that, if that makes sense. This moratorium would not apply to development requests not needing a rezoning, nor would it apply to amendments to an area that is subject to a master plan. It also would not apply to applications for rezoning that have already been submitted. We want to make sure that anything that has been legally accepted does process in the same manner as what they have been granted according to our current code. We just finished a couple of rezoning requests on this past city council meeting, so we are really down to a couple that have been delayed indefinitely and have not come back through to the Planning Commission yet. That's questionable as to what timing those might end up happening, and we'll have to see how those happen. But the only other one that's really in progress right now is this Gregory annexation, which we're first having to work through the annexation process. I have worked with Rosemary on timing for that, and we can get the annexation done essentially by the end of November 18th is essentially the date that we've got set right now in the calendar for finalizing that annexation. And then with the timing process on this moratorium, we'd be looking at December 2nd if we follow the normal process for adoption of an ordinance for the moratorium. So there is a window of time where the moratorium would not be in place. That rezoning request can be made so that they can not be held up by some moratorium of zoning, which we're, again, trying to enact so that we don't run into conflicts with the new ordinance. I believe we'd probably need a provision in our code that helps us transition if there are any of those other ones that do come forward and still want to be rezoned that have already been submitted. But again, those are right now indefinitely deferred, and so we don't know at what extent those may come back. But legally, we have accepted an application and taken their fees, and so we would probably have to process them under the old code. I know we had a lot of questions and comments and things last time. I'm happy to hear out whatever you have. We haven't drafted the ordinance yet because we want to make sure we do what the city feels is best, but that's all I got. So,
Thanks, Brian. Any questions?
This may be crazy, but if the moratorium goes into effect, I know that some of the changes in some of the districts and some of the zoning classifications will be, I'm not going to say substantial, but more substantial than others. There might be some districts that there's really very little change. Is it legally possible that someone, even during a moratorium, could submit their annexation, submit their plan, and agree as a condition of approval that they will comply by all of the requirements placed upon the new zoning classification assigned to that property? Now, I understand that's a big variable in most cases, but if it's a really cut and dry, simple thing where the most it could change is one minute detail, would somebody have the option to move forward, or is a moratorium and it's all or nothing?
I like that idea.
It's a good thought. I don't know how well it would work without having an adopted ordinance, because they wouldn't know what they're agreeing to. You see what I'm saying?
They would have to at least be able to see the preliminary or the draft that's underway right now, and they could see if there's any major changes coming to their type of property.
Yeah, I think that would be a question we could run. I'm okay with the concept. I think we'd want to run it by our legal department to see what they think about that particular.
I'm just real concerned about the 9 months. I mean, 9 months is a long time. 9 months, I could probably have a grandchild, not a.
Exactly.
Looked in the mirror,
I've changed that. John? So anyway, just looking for opportunities to just not hold somebody up if it's really a minor change that they're looking at.
I certainly prefer the 6 months. May I speak?
You can speak.
I certainly prefer the 6 months. Last time I said 3 months. And I've thought a lot about this just because I understand probably more than the average bear, just the two ways that this gets spun, and it concerns me because I think a lot of people will be like, oh, moratorium, like Ms. Bates said, they're stopping high-density residential development, yay, 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 but they don't understand what it's really about. And then on the other side, what I'm concerned about is that moratorium in the world of people making valuable investments in a community has a very, very negative connotation. And I fear they're going to hear Gallatin moratorium, and we'll just get blacklisted really easily without someone delving into it and understanding that it's not infrastructure related, it's simply code transition related. Because once we get marked off a list, especially in the job land or the commercial land, it'd be a while before we could show back up. Now, this is what I think, and I could be wrong, certainly, but those are kind of the things that I'm worried about. You mentioned too, this is the thing that's bothering me in general about the whole code change, is that, some of the people could have changes that are substantial to where how their property is zoned, and that does concern me because I feel like, if we are getting a land use that takes away their rights, that concerns me.
I probably shouldn't have used the word substantial. That's kind of a strong word. I don't know if they're substantial. I think that you stated that everything you're trying to do is make sure that you're not taking away any vested rights from property. And
That's correct.
substantial is kind of strong language.
And again, I think I mentioned it, but at the last one, but I mean, there are generally only maybe half a dozen rezoning requests that might go through in a year, so it's not a whole lot. We're just trying to minimize what changes would have to occur on the zoning map after it's been enacted in a certain way. Would it be the end of the world if we had to do that? Probably not, but at the same time, I mean, it is extra work that has to go into making it an official map at some point, and it also drags out how long of a time it would be before we would have an official map, because there are applications that are still pending.
Isn't the main question to come from Planning Commission as a recommendation to City Council, the question of whether or not a moratorium of some length of duration is necessary? But the timing, the length of that moratorium should be really up to council. And if council has seen the final draft that you're sending through to them and they feel very confident about this and they don't see a lot of hiccups, they can set the timing of that moratorium at 5 months or 6 months. But if they think that there's going to be a lot of discussion and back and forth, they can decide this is going to make a grandchild.
I also, I wish there were some alternative term that we could use. Like, is there some way that we could say that we will cease accepting rezoning applications for a period of 6 months? Because moratorium means no building. And so, I mean, I think when you hear that word, now some of you who are,
Could we possibly put that temporary in front of moratorium? And maybe try to define how long we think it'll be?
well, I think it will be that.
It's still a
I just
moratorium
think
at that
it-
point.
I think it's just I just think it's the word just translates into our ceasing, moratorium associated with the city translates into ceasing development. And this is specific to rezoning, and that's why it just feels more honest, actually, to say that we are going to stop accepting rezonings for, because that's the only thing we're stopping accepting for a period of time,
I'm happy to consider any.
rezonings will not be
alternative
accepted
terms.
between this period and this
Yeah.
period.
I don't mind changing what we call it if that is causing us some heartburn. I mean, I think that's,
Well, I just don't want to set false expectations. And like I said, I don't want the people that want housing to stop to think that that's what's going on, and I don't want
sure.
people who are potential investors to not have interest in us because they think that it's one thing.
Also kind of depends on how well we explain to the public what we're doing. And so, I mean, I think good PR on it also helps, but I mean, willing to tweak it as far as the naming of it, however we want to. And again, my goal with the time frame on it is not to, make it more difficult for people. It's to try to make sure that we have the amount of time that we need to get through the adoption of the code. And I can't put a straight answer on how much time that will be, because I don't know how long it's going to take to have those discussions with you all and at the city council level before we're ready to say yes to an adoption. So,
I've, since we spoke about this, I guess it was last week, I guess 2 weeks ago, I've thought a lot about this. I agree with what the mayor said. I think the terminology of a moratorium just, it means there's a problem. In all aspects of the development world, whenever you hear a moratorium in a city, there is a problem in that city. And it's my opinion, I don't think we have a problem. I mean, I think we have a lot of good things going on in the city. I think that we've made a lot of great efforts to adopt a comp plan, and we're going through and trying to adopt a zoning code. And I think you establish a moratorium or whatever you want to call it, it screams to everyone, there is a problem, and there's not. I think that if you establish a moratorium or even if it's a 6 months, we're not accepting any rezones. I said it last time, you eliminate all incentive to adopt the zoning code in a reasonable time frame. All incentive. That zoning code will not be adopted until the very end of the moratorium. And I know right now, you have it on the bullet that that's the goal, is to make sure the zoning code's adopted before the end of the moratorium, but you eliminate the incentive and you take the focus, we now have a focus, like we've got to spend 4 months now on deciding if we want to have a moratorium as opposed to focusing our efforts on going through the code and adopting it. And I think that we already spent 2 years in the process of creating a comp plan that established what the new zoning ordinance should look like. Therefore, we already have a document that people should be looking to establish whether or not they're going to rezone a property to something that fits the comp plan. Because we were told verbatim at the beginning of the zoning code that the zoning code, and there's even language in the zoning code, that the zoning code will adhere to the comp plan. So there's already a basis of, it's not that, okay, I'm going to look at the new zoning code even though it's not adopted. We already have a document that specifies what you can and can't do, especially from a density standpoint. I think that you eliminate all incentive to adopt the new code, and I mean, there are going to be properties that don't adhere to the new code. That it is what it is. And I think that if you adopt a moratorium, it's just a lazy way to transition to a new code. Now, that's my personal opinion, but I think we should be focusing our efforts on the zoning code and not establishing a moratorium, because there's already due process in place on whether or not we even approve the zoning requests that they have. And if there's only a handful that come through a year that aren't already a PMDP, why have a moratorium? And why take the chance that we lose out on some pretty awesome opportunities as a city because someone sees that and they go, oh.
Gallatin's out.
I mean, I've already had like several people reach out to me and say, hey, is this happening? Like, it's not a good look at all. I feel very strongly about that, and I think that instead of focusing our efforts on a moratorium and taking the 4 months it takes to get through the process and have it established on December 2nd, I think we should focus it on the zoning code itself. Those are my thoughts. Anyone else?
Well, how would you handle the conflicts that will arise in the transition?
How are we handling them now? If we adopted the zoning code tomorrow, how would we handle the conflicts that are already there? There's gonna be conflicts. And even with the moratorium, you're gonna have people submit plans ahead of time to get ahead of the moratorium.
Yeah, I do know that.
You're putting something in place that's kind of inevitable, and you handle the conflicts like you would handle anything else. I mean, there are going to be several non-conforming properties whenever we adopt the new code. We could spend hours trying to get it right, and we're not going to get it perfect.
So
we can get dang close.
With the timing on the moratorium being adopted, if you set it at a certain date, say it were December 2nd, whatever, and the code took us through April, May, June-ish to adopt, by the time we got to that point, anything that was submitted by December 2nd would have been through the process likely. So you're going to have hopefully resolution on most everything that was submitted, in anticipation of trying to get in before the moratorium starts. You processed all that, and now we know what our zoning map would look like, because we can then turn it into what it belongs.
But we already have a document in place that people look to establish whether or not they're rezoning a property. Like that's, and if we just want to look at that, we have a comprehensive plan that we spent over 2 years adopting for people that are looking to invest in our city, to look towards, to tell them, this is how you should invest your money in our city.
That's not establishing the actual zoning. So the actual zone.
But we are looking to that document to make sure they're adhering to that.
And that's correct. The actual zoning of the property, though, if we have them zone it to R8 PRD, for
Correct.
example.
Yeah.
It won't be R8 PRD once we have to move into this new code. We would actually
It'll
have
be
to
a
change.
PMD, it'll be a PMDP.
We would
It
have
won't
to
adhere to the new zoning code.
change that zoning on the map to the EPD district. So it wouldn't be R8 PRD anymore.
I know.
I'm just-
But the
I'm
only
just saying
change,
there's gonna
but
be
the
a
only change you have to
conflict.
do with the, yes, and the only conflict you have to fix is the zoning map at the end of the day.
Correct.
Because it's what the document that establishes the zoning, because it's the, right now in the zoning code, if you want to rezone to 5 out of the, or however many out of the 20 zones we have, you have to go through the PMDP and the FMD process. So the PMDP is what establishes the zoning rights for that property, not the base zone. And so the only conflict you have to adhere to at that point, or have to deal with at that point, is we just change the color or the hatch on the zoning map.
What if somebody comes in asking for a mixed-use district? If they ask for MU, I mean,
That's it. When I hear that, if I hear someone's coming in asking for a mixed-use district, I mean, it would all depend, because we would look to the comp plan on the character of that area. We already have, I mean, they're not great. Don't get me wrong. I think there are instances in the comp plan where we probably should have spent more time on it. But there are mechanisms in the comp plan that establish what that character area should look like, what types of buildings should be in there, what density allowance is in there. There's half the zoning code, bulk regulations in there that people can establish it to. And so that's what I'm saying. We already have a document to look at to determine whether or not we want to rezone that property. If it doesn't meet the comp plan, I'm sorry. I'd venture to say half the body is going to be like, it doesn't meet the comp plan. Like, let it meet the comp plan and we can talk. Because we have that right, because it's a rezone. Yes, sir.
Question. So as a person, as an expert in the industry, that idea I threw out there about an applicant voluntarily agreeing to conditions of the new zoning code, which haven't been clearly defined yet, how many applicants would agree to something like that if we said that it had to be, that it will be assigned to zoning that's in compliance with our comp plan? And if they disagree with the zoning assignment assigned to them, it would go to the BZA to get,
So I will say this.
would people agree to that kind of variable?
I think that you'd be surprised, the vast majority of people that are already looking at the comp plan to establish whether or not they're looking at a property or not. And so they are looking to the comp plan to determine, does it make sense for me to develop in this area or invest in this area? Like that, there's a reason why we took 2 years to adopt that plan. And for the first time in a long time, not only did we adopt it, but council adopted it. The last comp plan we had, council didn't adopt. And so that's even crazier, because for 20 years, we had a council and a planning commission that weren't technically seeing eye to eye. Planning commission was using it, and council didn't use it because it wasn't adopted.
Well, that's a mistake of the past, and we fixed that.
I know, and we fixed it, and that's why the process we went through with the comp plan, even though there are likely some things that may need to be changed, like, was so good because both bodies adopted it, and both bodies were moving forward with a vision for the city. And so I'd say if I had to guess, 95 to 98% of the developers and the people looking to invest in the city are, when they are looking at property, whether it's commercial, industrial, residential, whatever, they are looking at that comp plan to determine what they are doing or not doing on that property.
So I beg the question, would they submit a rezoning and perhaps an annexation request saying they will comply with the future zoning placed on it that's aligned with the comp plan, or is that just too great a variable for a?
I think, I mean, that is a variable, yes. I mean, I said this last time. I think not only should folks be looking at the comp plan, but they should be looking at the new zoning code. If they know the new zoning code is coming in place, and we do too as a body, we should be looking at that code. Now, I know it's not adopted yet, but if we don't feel like what that individual is doing with their property not only meets the comp plan, but meets our vision for the city with the new zoning code, because we're gonna have to adopt the zoning code. If we don't feel like that, then it's, I think they're on an uphill battle to try to get their rezoning approved. Because we should be doing our due diligence as this body by referring to not only well, definitely the comp plan right now, because we don't have the new zoning code established, but we should also be referring to the new zoning code as some kind of basis on whether or not we're rezoning a property.
Yeah, but we did have a lot of discussions during the whole comp plan discussion or debate about the comp plan is not law, the zoning code is law.
It's not, but it's our vision, and there is language in the new zoning code, I can't remember what page it is, but it is a full paragraph that says that the whole purpose and intent of the zoning code is to adhere to the comp plan and go, like, comp plan's at 30,000 feet, zoning code's at 10,000 feet. Like, we're trying to nail it down and get really close. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, one perspective I think we might wish to contemplate is that I suspect that deliberation about whether to do this, how to do this, when to do this, between this body and the council could take a lot more time than it would take planning staff to deal with issues.
Possibly. I mean, and
then take the
again,
focus from where it needs to be, which is on the code.
perhaps you're right. I mean, perhaps it's not that big of a deal, and there wouldn't be that many changes to deal with.
I mean, are you going to
As long
have?
as we have a mechanism that's written into the code that says, okay, if a zoning of a property that's been requested under the old code happens after the adoption of the new code, that rezoning would have to follow a conversion.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, there could be some.
That is equal for every property that gets zoned for that way. You know, if it's agricultural, it's going to go to CD2A. If it's, you know, mixed use or something else, it's going to go to maybe a CD4 or whatever it may be.
Yeah, but the compliances of, I mean, say the zoning code gets adopted January 1st, and you have something that's submitted in December, right? And say it conflicts to a varying degree. Well, I mean, then okay, this was submitted in December. This document adheres to the old code. I mean, that happens in every municipality.
It does, although we have accounted for that on the zoning map by making those properties adjusted to a new district, even though it may not, it's still going to have a new district.
But those
So
properties.
It would not be, if it's R8 in the old code, it's not going to be R8 in the new code.
Yeah, correct. Yes, I agree with you, but it should at least be close to the vision map that we had in the comp plan. Should it not? Because that was the whole goal of going through a 2-year process with the comp plan.
We are doing our best on that, although the larger part of the transitions will be trying to keep properties in character with what they already have zoning rights and
Okay, so
to be able to do.
So let's talk about that for a second. What if someone comes? I know the comp plan is not law, but it's supposed to be a vision for what the city is. What if you're going to have people that have properties that the comp plan says one thing, the zoning code says another, and they want to come and they want to submit a request saying, I want my property to look like the comp plan. We're going to have to deal with that, and that's a discrepancy.
That would be a discrepancy, although would be a change that we would try to make during the process, not after the fact, is what I'm trying to say.
When you say during the process of adopting the code.
Correct. So we will entertain those types of discussions and requests.
But only if it comes from the property owner.
Right.
What is the appeal process if, when properties are reassigned a new zoning classification under this new code, And if somebody doesn't agree with the classifications that is assigned to is the BZA going to be really busy?
I will double check, but I think the BZA does have, it's either the BZA or the straight to Chancery Court, if it's a decision by city council. But it might be the Chancery Court. Do you know that, Ben?
Don't
I
know
mean,
that.
it defeats the question.
I got a
Yes,
question.
oh, Steve, yes. Go ahead.
Is it possible to have a joint meet, I think we've had one before, between the council and the planning commission? Because what you're saying and he's saying doesn't always get to the council, like how you feel about it and the reasoning for it. All we know usually is it approves or it's just.
Yeah. I would be open to it. I mean, I would be open to it. I don't know when that occurs. I don't know if that's a special meeting. I don't know how that works. I mean, we had a.
I can tell you this, if planning commission is not in support of a moratorium, I'm not gonna push it. I'm not gonna push it through just because I think it should be a certain way. You know, I don't wanna be in conflict with how you all feel about it. And if there's strong feelings against it, then we'll deal with it on the other side. We'll make it work. But I mean, I'm not trying to create a ruckus with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure that it happens cleanly in the best the way that I think we can do it.
I do want to clarify. I think that this, I can say this, the spirit of it coming from the planning department is good. However, I strongly feel that this terminology or anything like this is going to, it will have negative ramifications.
Well, and the piece of that the staff likely probably doesn't think about, and we do want to, I say we, I certainly want to make things as easy for the planning staff as can be, but I really do fear that we're going to be having an argument over this for the next 3 months, and that's just going to delay us getting to a point where we can actually focus on the code once the changes come back. And you said it should just be a couple of weeks, so I'd like to do that. But the framework in which I think maybe you and I are viewing this is that you're hearing moratorium all over Tennessee relevant to something entirely different. And so I fear that we are, like I said, both directions, creating expectations that are not accurate. And I don't want the wrong, I don't want people to think they can't invest here, and I don't want people to think that we are doing something that they think they want, but we actually legally can't do, so.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yep. I mean, if anybody else has anything else, I feel like, based on the discussion, we will likely not process this, because again, I don't want to fight an uphill battle with you all and city council. I also feel that we can address it in another way. It'll just have to be after the fact changes to the map that we'll have to just deal with.
I mean, I think there could be like some kind of legal disclaimer, like on our application process. I think what Mr. Preer suggested is a thoughtful direction. I think that you're on the edge of your seat. You may have some advice, but I think I really like the idea of them like trying to move forward by their own choice, and I don't mind at all the thing where we say we are not accepting applications for this period of time.
Yeah.
That sounds real different than.
I also will put it out there that I know for a fact that Columbia did not enact any moratorium, and they went through the same process as we did when they adopted a similar code. So is it doable? Yes.
Did it cause much conflict for them, or have you talked to them to find out?
Say that question again?
Did it create a lot of grief for them, or have you talked to them to find out?
I asked them about it. It didn't seem like they had an issue with, having to, deal with making changes after the fact, although
And it
in my
could-
mind, I still felt like it was potentially worthwhile to think about doing it.
Because the reality is, we could all be so worried about this and not a single application come through in the period
It's
of time.
possible, you're right. So is it worth, the headache of doing this and creating a bunch of angst? Probably not. So I'm going to withdraw the request to try to do it.
I mean, go ahead.
Still want to answer Mr. Reeder's question about if an application comes in, because even without a moratorium, that can matter if we want to require them to agree to future zoning that it might have, because we won't know what that is. There's no way we can tell someone, you're going to get zoning X, but you have to live by zoning XY under the new zoning ordinance, that we don't know what that's going to be until it's fully adopted. There's no way we can enforce that on anyone, because we don't even know what we'd be enforcing until it's approved. So I just don't think that that's really an option you can put on an applicant.
And to add to that, I'd venture to say 80 to 90% of the rezoning requests that are going to come forward between now and the time we adopt this code are going to be PMDP requests, and those documents hold the zoning requirements on it anyways. It's not even a base zone.
Say that one more time.
80 to, if I had to guess, if I was gambling on this, I'm not. I have to preface that. 80 to 90% of the rezoning requests that are going to be submitted to planning are going to be PMDPs, which the PMDP, that document, is what holds the zoning requirements for that property, not the base zone. And so the only items that they're specifying that this would maintain or manage are straight rezoning requests of property. Now, it would still be.
The rest, if they're PMDP, they'll switch to an EPD on the map.
Correct, but even more so, at that point, because it's a PMDP, there's no conflict. I mean, the PMDP is already in conflict with the zoning code now, because it has its own bulk regulations. The document does. It doesn't adhere to a base zone.
It's technically both. I mean, there will be zoning ordinance regulations that'll still apply.
Yes.
But the PMDP with the zoning ordinance
Yes.
sort of mesh together and create a set of regulations where it will apply.
If that's the case and it's a PMDP, literally the only change after we adopt the new code is that the map gets changed to a different color or a different hatch. That's the only change. There are minor minor things that it would have to adhere to, but I don't know.
Again, like I said, based on the current discussion, I'm
Say
gonna
that.
pull back.
Well, that is your choice.
Yeah. I think that's fine, and we won't create a bunch of angst.
I never said
by-
no
by
moratorium.
moving
I
it.
said not 9 months, and I just didn't want you to think that you were totally carrying it out there by yourself, but
Yeah,
but that is your choice.
I do think the mayor's point about, the negative connotation of the word moratorium carries whether you call it something different or not. And if that many people are concerned that we're going to have a negative impact on the city and or on potential ability to move forward a good project, it's not worth it.
Well, what I said was just my thoughts. I don't know that I've heard from a lot of people. I just think in the current climate where you see moratoriums springing up around Tennessee and, that people put them in that same thing. So like I said, we're creating these false expectations. We've got one bucket of people who are ecstatic because they think that means we're not going to build anything else, and that's not false. And then we've got another part that are going to hear it and think, oh, we're not investing there because they don't have available infrastructure, and they're not accurate either. And so we're just really kind of upsetting what people think on two different sides that doesn't benefit anybody. I mean, y'all, and I don't want to put more work on you. I mean, I know you've already had a very, very heavy lift just with what you've done with the code so far. So it's not like we're I don't want to be disrespectful of how you all think it's best to proceed at all. I'm just trying to think out loud about, is there a better way?
Sure. I mean, we also heard from our economic development department too, and not wanting to see any negative impacts to our ability in that regard. Again, by no means has my intent been to cause a halt on development or
Know
even
that.
the impression
No,
that
we
we're
know.
doing.
We all know that. We all know.
But if it has that negative effect, even without it being what it is, I just
Think
as
it's
soon
different.
do the work afterwards to change our zoning map. You guys are right. It's not going to be that much work to change the zoning map. It's just something extra that we're trying to avoid. But this is a lot of work to get through avoiding something like that too. So maybe it's not worth it.
We still have a discussion with engineering to get to.
We do.
Do we have any other comments on item number 11? Seeing none, we will go to item number 12, other business. Engineering discussion on connectivity.
Yeah, so I won't take too much of your time, and there's nothing really to do tonight. It's more of just me talking about connectivity, and just kind of let you know on what's happened on a recent development. So I definitely want to dive deeper into connectivity at a future date. Would be nice to have that as part of maybe your required training in place of other things. But tonight, I just, like I said, want to give a description on connectivity and let you know what happened in the development. So street connectivity redistributes traffic across an entire street network. Connected local streets help keep local trips off arterial streets and reduce the need for widening and construction improvements on collector or arterial streets. Highly connected grids are cheaper to build and maintain, making them more economical by getting better value out of every street, not having to build for high-speed traffic, and not creating congested choke points. Increased connectivity provides for different modes of travel besides automobiles by linking sidewalks, paths, bicycle lanes, and streets. Destination distances become shorter, thereby potentially increasing trips by walking, cycling, or transit. So the development I want to talk about is the Caldwell Place Apartments. This is the development that is between Cages Bend and Douglas Bend and south of Foxen Boulevard that will be extended to Cages Bend. This is just the apartment part of it. There's a townhome portion of this development and the apartments. So ideally, this would have had roadway connections to Foxen Boulevard extension, the Percival Drive, Dawn Drive, and Lisa Lane. And the intention would have been for all of those to be full accesses. The plan was approved with full connections to Foxen Boulevard and Percival Drive with an emergency-only access connection to Dawn Drive. Percival Drive is a private road that was found to not have an access easement, so the HOA would have to allow that connection. This recently came back where a condition was added for them to make the Percival connection if possible. The HOA declined that connection. The new condition didn't address another full connection if the Percival Drive was removed. So this development now only has one full access to Foxen Boulevard and a gated access to Dawn Drive that can only be used in emergency situations. So we're not asking to go back and remove the gate. It would be nice, but I don't even think that that's an option for us now. So each instance of not having connectivity won't break the system, but a continued lack of connectivity will aggregate and put a necessary burden and strain on the transportation network. So we would ask that you take this into consideration in the future when you see a comment regarding connectivity. So again, I just wanted to bring this up because it was a recent incident that we had, and that we would want to take a deeper dive into connectivity, and we'll work with planning to see if a discussion from us on connectivity and maybe even, including traffic impact studies, if that could be go towards y'all's training that you have to do every year as commissioners. But Again, there's no real action that needs to be taken tonight. It's just throwing that out there.
A question on the gated access. Is that also onto a private drive?
No, that's a
So
county road.
It's a county road?
Mhm.
Okay. But the other one was to a private drive
That's correct.
on a connection that we approved, and the HOA just said no.
So most of the time, your private drives would also have an access easement
Yeah.
over it. For whatever reason, this one did not. So I think if there was an access easement, it wouldn't have been.
So private drives running throughout the entire development, but they weren't PUDEs or PUDAs.
Correct.
I think that may also be a reason to take a second thought when someone's proposing a private drive. You know, it's not always
I thought they all
beneficial.
had to be PUDAs. I guess it's new?
It's been like 10 years since this one was established. I think it was just,
Okay.
It could have been just something that, was missed in the
missed, yeah.
process.
yeah, it wasn't a recent
So,
private road
Correct.
establishment.
Correct. This one's kind of a different scenario. That's why I just wanted to bring it, because it recently came in, because we had the condition on, make this connection if it's possible.
Yeah.
And then they didn't do that, and we don't have another full access.
But we have the gated access now, which is a crash gate, I'm assuming.
Yep, so neither the county residents nor the apartment folks can go through that gate.
I mean, I think it's a good reminder. I mean, I think it's something that we definitely need to be looking at from a connectivity standpoint. I mean, I know we're talking about connectivity, but I think from a life safety standpoint, emergency personnel standpoint, and then just a unit count standpoint.
Yeah, and I mean, luckily, like with the life safety issue, these are apartments, so they're all sprinkled.
Yeah.
So it's not an issue there, but from a traffic flow standpoint, it would have been really nice, and honestly, I think it would benefit the folks in the county more than it would the folks in the apartments.
Yeah.
Because they would, instead of them having to drive out to Douglas Bend and either get onto Foxen or Nashville Pike to say go to Kroger, they could just, go through there and not get on an arterial road.
What is the process to remove a crash gate?
So number one, we discussed this with the applicant to just letting them know that we were going to use this as an example discussion. We're not wanting to bring it back to you all to try to make some sort of amendment on their plan. Of course, they get their entitlements and they want to start rolling, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to affect their ability to move forward by somehow bringing it back through a public process and making, but I feel like because we would be changing access, that it would have to go through a public process, because say you lived on, somewhere on that county road where Dawn Drive would be accessing, you'd want to have your due process, your right to know what's going on. You'd want to have your notice that, hey, there may be more traffic on my road now. So I feel like the right process to put someone through if they were going to make a change like that would be to come back to the planning commission to make that change so that there's public notice involved. But again, in this case, we're not planning on doing that. We're just highlighting this as a concern, and the example being used because it helps to highlight what that concern.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought it up. If you look back at all the debates we've had about connectivity, if you ask the general populace and the whole community, the whole town, is connectivity good? 80% of the people will say yes. But if you ask the people that are affected by a specific development that they live in, they'll say no. 80% will say no, we don't want connectivity. It's a public safety issue. Heck, I even read a book, Suburban Nation, which was a great book about modern development, and it talked about cul-de-sac communities and even linked the lack of connectivity to obesity in kids and a lack of connection with other kids. They can't even get on their bike and ride to their buddy Jimmy's house because their parents have to take them out on a major arterial and go around 8 blocks to get over to the next neighborhood, but that's 400 yards away. I'm a big advocate for connectivity, so That's all I have to say about that. That's what Forrest.
I'd like to say I specifically remember not too long ago where we listened to the adjoining residents who didn't want connectivity to their neighborhood. And sure enough, something gets built, and then we start getting calls about, when's our road going to connect to us so we don't have to go out and come here and do that? And, I mean, it happens. I think, you know, if you're an existing resident, you don't want the change, and it's hard to have the conversation with somebody that says the next person who lives in your home might really love it. I mean, people don't receive that well, but I do believe that that's kind of the true circumstance.
Yeah, we like to use the Windsong development as one, and we had talked about kind of going to the HOA and trying to poll that residence, because when Windsong came through, I'm sure there was several people from that neighborhood that said, we don't want this. And then when the streets were up to binder and Publix was open, there were barricades placed across so they wouldn't be driving through construction zones, and we would get calls, hey, can you tell them to remove those barricades? We want to go to Publix.
That's what I was thinking of. And then going way back, like my whole life it's been that way. Apparently Lakeshore, when it was built.
Yes. That's the classic example.
That's the classic example.
When I was growing up, you lived in Lakeshore or you lived in Lake Charlotte. And you couldn't get, matter of fact, we used to ride our bikes to get from one neighborhood to the other and get in trouble for cutting through the fence, you know?
And, well, if you wanted to go pick up your neighbor that lived next door and they were on the other side, you had to drive about 8 miles to get to them.
Can it not be part of our new code that a development we have to have a minimum of 2 ingress, egress?
Well, we have that already by
Well,
code.
That's part of the
Already
fire code.
fire code.
Or fire code?
It's all based on unit count. So it was,
But one can be a crash gate.
Technically,
well, in this case, the buildings are sprinkled, so they can technically have,
I'm talking about emergency access only. I'm saying that in our code right now, you can have 1 ingress, egress only. You can have 2, and one of them's a crash gate, so you end up having just 1 entry point.
it meets code.
Well,
That doesn't just mean our code. That's international fire code. That's the hard thing.
And that would be more of a connectivity for traffic flow versus
Life safety.
fire code, yeah.
But that's the other thing that we would likely have to, I hate to say deal with, but like, if we placed a requirement like that they're gonna look to the International Fire Code and say, why? Even though it's so good, even though it's a good thing.
Surely you're not saying that our code can't exceed the International Fire Code.
Yes, it technically could.
Building codes are the minimum. Building codes are a good thing. They're
Yes.
the minimum acceptable, but your codes can exceed the standard building code.
Well, and that's why you see us making the comment for connectivity to essentially every property line and promoting that. It's just good, good practice, good engineering to promote the connectivity of developments.
Now, I think your point was, do we need training, structured training to remind us of the need for connectivity? And my answer is yeah.
Yeah, it's more of, I don't know how many hours that y'all need annually, but, if we could give a discussion on that and that count towards that, I feel like that'd be good.
Want to tack on an agenda item to TAPA?
that was a really good lead-in to, we need structured training.
Yeah.
And so if this discussion's over, we can move to, I just wanted to make the announcement about our TAPA TAPA conference that's coming up in October. So we've got about a month and a half till that time. It's October 20th through 22nd. You should have hopefully received an email from Suzanne. Did that happen? Did you guys see that? If you have not responded to that, please go ahead and do that so that we know who we need to register for the conference. Obviously, hopefully you all remember that you do need to get 4 hours of training per year. And if you have not gotten that yet, we just need to make sure that you have an opportunity to do that. It's in Franklin this year, so you don't have to travel. So, I mean, that's really good. You can go home and sleep in your bed, and you don't have to worry about staying in a hotel or anything. That's what our planning staff is going to do each night, so we don't have to spend the extra money for staying in the hotel. But
Do you happen to know if the property rights, which is the required training that we have to have, is on the 22nd or the 21st?
the agenda has not been set yet, so I can't tell you for sure what days, what sessions are going to be.
Are they going to allow remote?
I definitely will send the agenda out to everyone once
I
we
have
do get
a
that.
conflict on the 21st I cannot get out of, but sometimes they've done these by remote so that you can attend remotely. Is there a possibility they'll do that?
It won't be remote. In certain instances, there may be a separate TAPA session that is remote that you could attend, but for the conference, they don't do it remote at this time.
Okay.
Remind me,
They're trying to bolster registrations that would get you to show up
I
and be
understand.
there. So
Was the one at Montgomery Bell in the spring or fall?
that was in the spring.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks for the reminder.
Okay.
Anything else?